go ahead and open to your Focus on China notes in the reading section of your vocab notebook. Draw a squiggly line underneath the last word. What was it? Underneath number 8.
Number 8.
Number 8, and at the underneath the squiggly line, write today's date, January 7th, 2021. I feel like today's an important date for some reason. I can't think what that reason is. Okay. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm confusing it with... Well, it is a National Something Day. It's National Pass Gas Day. Okay. Carla, make sure your camera's on. Okay. So, today we're doing a lesson on parts of a reference book. A reference book is not a book you read. I mean, some people may read it for fun, but it's not like a novel or you need to be able to see both at the same time. It is not a novel or something that you read to necessarily be entertained. It may entertain you, but it is a place where you go to get information. Examples of reference books are dictionaries, encyclopedias, textbooks. Do you see what's similar about those three things? What is similar about those three things? You go to them to find what? Zadie? Information. Very good. I was not expecting somebody to get that right away, so thank you. Reference books are places, books that you go to for information. Biographies can be reference books. Like user manuals, you know, like when you get a new piece of electronic or a new electronic, it usually comes with like a little manual that tells you how to use it. Those would be examples of reference texts. Kingston, do you have an example of a reference book? Yes, but can we always rely on Google to find new information?
Yes.
No, we can't. Because what if I tell you, you're going to do this project, but you cannot use the internet? Yes, there is lots of information on the internet. But that doesn't mean, this is exactly the conversation Ms. Miller and I were just having. That does not mean you don't need to know how to do this. Because even on the internet, if you look things up, internet pages will have things like this. It just looks a little different. Also, if we rely on the internet, are we ever going to learn for everything? Are we ever going to learn how to do things for ourselves? No. That's part of the problem. When you guys sit and after a little bit, like 5 minutes of reading, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired of reading. That's because you spend so much time on tablets, on phones, watching TV. That's exactly why after 5 minutes of reading a paper book, you're like, I'm bored. And is that a good way to be? No. No, because then you get to school where you have to spend more than 5 minutes in your textbook, and after 5 minutes you're like, I'm bored. I'm not going to pay attention to any other stuff. Do you ever learn anything? No. These things are important. The internet may have everything, but we should not rely on the internet. Especially because if we go to the internet and we type in our president's name, Abraham Lincoln, we will not only find good information and good websites. The internet can have very bad information that somebody just believes and they put it in a way that makes you think, oh, that's true. A reference book is not like that. An encyclopedia, a textbook, a dictionary, a random person cannot go in and write an encyclopedia or write an article for an encyclopedia or come up with their own new words and put it in the dictionary. A random person cannot do that because there is a big group of people that come together and they approve and they write and they come up with everything that's going to be in it. And if you look at our textbooks at the first few pages where it says everybody who contributed, you'll see they're almost all of them are Dr. So-and-so, Dr. So-and-so, Dr. So-and-so, Professor So-and-so, Professor So-and-so. That's because they have a lot of education And they know exactly how to do things like this. They know exactly how to find good, real, true information so that only good information goes into our reference books. On the internet, I could create a website that says Abraham Lincoln was a space alien. And I could write all this stuff and say that I did all of this research and I saw all of this stuff and I have all of this proof. I can create a picture of Abraham Lincoln beaming down from a spaceship and say it's true. And then I can put it on the internet and some very dumb person is going to be able to read that and be like, oh, that's true. Or someone who is not dumb but cares, but puts way too much thought into what other people say and believes everything other people say is going to be like, well, that doesn't sound right, but it's on the internet, so I guess it must be true. Can that happen with a reference book?
Yeah.
No, it can't. It cannot happen. So when you're doing a paper and it really, really matters that you have good information, where would be a better place to look? The internet or a reference book? Michaela? A reference book. Because then you can be sure that everything you say, every bit of research you do, is true. When we get to our president projects, there's only going to be certain websites that you are allowed to find information from. That's because we have looked through them to make sure they are correct, or they are an online version of an encyclopedia. And those are the only websites you are going to be allowed to use. Because then we know every fact you get is 100% true, not made up, or not an opinion that is presented as a fact. So, that is why it is so important to know how to use a reference book. This will also help you with your textbook and finding information in there. So, everybody should have this, and they should be in their notebook, because we are going to talk about each of these things. So, first, this is not on here, but it's something we need to know. So yeah, go ahead and get out your reading textbook. Because this is where we're going to find that. So quickly get out your reading textbook. I don't know if I have it in my teacher's manual. But let me go grab. Okay. So the first thing we're going to talk about, it's not on this page, but we will find it in our book after we look through it, is, so we're not going to number these, but line them up with the pink line. The first part of a book is the title page. This is one of the first things you'll find in a reference book. And as soon as we define it, I'll show it to you where it is in your textbook, and then you can look as well. The title page is the first page of a book, not the cover of the book. It's the first page of the book. That lists, if you just said, I'm not going to have enough room, first of all, you don't need to call out. Second of all, that's why you have multiple pages in your notebook. That lists the title, author, illustrator, if there is one. Not every book has an illustrator. Because what does the illustrator do? What does the illustrator of a book do? Carla.
It makes the pictures.
They draw the pictures. Does every single book have pictures in it? No. So if there is an illustrator, that will be listed on the title page. And last is the publisher. That is the company who printed the book. The publisher is who printed the book. So if we open up our treasurer's book, textbook, you'll notice, well here, this is not the title page. Some books have this extra little page in here that has nothing on it. A lot of books have that. just as a, well, I'm not really sure why. I'm sure there's a reason, because I think the back has it too. Yep, the back has it too. There is, I'm sure, a reason. I'm not sure what it is. Yes?
It's probably because it's like the beginning of the book
Maybe?
and it's about to start, so you know it's about.
Yeah. So here is the title page. It has the title of this reference book, Treasures, a reading language arts program. It does not have an author or an illustrator, but it does have the publisher, Macmillan McGraw-Hill. That is the publisher. That is the company that published this textbook. Why do you think our textbook does not have an author or an illustrator listed? It has words, it has pictures, but why is there not an author and an illustrator listed right here? Why do you think that is? Smith.
Because there are different stories in the book that have different authors and different illustrators.
Very good, because there are a lot of stories in this book that have different authors and illustrators. Also, this is a reference book. Reference books are most often not written by the same person. The whole thing is not written by the same person when you get a reference book. Different parts are written or compiled or whatever, put together by different people. So a reference book will usually not have an author or an illustrator because multiple people went into creating different parts of the book. In a reference book, if you keep going, you might see another one that says who was most in charge of putting this together. So we have, if we go one page over, we see the same stuff. We see the title of the book. We see the program authors. That's who was most in charge of putting these things together. And we still see Macmillan McGraw-Hill. But a textbook was written by even more than these people. So usually a textbook or a reference book, I think you guys may not actually have this, but I do. You guys don't have this. I do, however, because I have, oh, do you? No, these are those pictures. Those are just the titles of the sections. But in my teacher's manual, because it's more important that I know who these people are than you are so that I trust them to give me good information to teach you guys,
Does it say who?
mine goes a little further and has more information about these program authors. No, that's not it.
Yeah.
And then I get even more information
Oh.
about the program authors and even more people. Because I'm the one that has to choose, is this a good book to use to teach my students? So they want to show every reason that I can trust them. They want to show the types of degrees that they have, that they got in college. Please make sure that you're focusing up here. They want me to see the degrees they have in college, because if I'm looking at a reference language arts book written by somebody who went to college to be a mathematician, do you think I'm going to trust as much what they have to say about language arts? Not really. But if they went to school and they are a professor at a major college like California State University, San Bernardino, and they are president of the California Reading Association in 1995, and they were co-author of another reading language arts reference book, am I probably going to trust them a little more? So that's an added part that you may see in reference books geared towards older people, because they want to make sure that the people who compile these reference books are people we can trust to give us good information. But you guys just have the basics. You have the title, the publisher, and the people who were mainly in charge of getting information together for this book. So there you have a title page. Cullen, can I see your book that you're reading right now? Now here's a book for fun. A book for fun, a novel, also has a title page. It lists the title of the book, the illustrator, the author, and the publisher. So you can see all of those on one page. Now, the way it looks and where these things are may be different because that just depends on the style that the people who put the book together decide to go with. So sometimes it may all be in one page, kind of boring looking. Sometimes it's interesting like this, but it should all be there. Okay, so that was a really long time spent on the title page. Excuse me. Is the title page the same thing as the front cover? No. This is the front cover. It usually has the title, it'll usually have the author, and sometimes it'll have the author and illustrator if there is one. Sometimes it'll have the publisher. Can I see your book again, Colin? Can I hold on to it until we're done with this lesson? This book has, for Fun Book, has the title, it has the author, it has the publisher, Scholastic. It does not have the illustrator. Sometimes they don't have the publisher. But most front covers will always have the title and the author if there is one or two. A textbook or a reference book won't have the author on the cover because there's usually a ton. Okay.
You said you were going to hold on to it.
I did. Thanks. Now, let's go back to this. Because this next, leave your book to the side because we can find these in our reading. You can leave it there. You can leave it on your desk, just make sure you can write. Don't have it open.
I was going to put
Because we can look for where those things are in our textbook. But the next thing that you will see, usually, is a table of contents. A table of contents. Now the word contents means what's inside. The contents of a box are what is inside the box. The contents of a purse means what's inside the purse. The contents of a Lunchable means what's inside the Lunchable. The contents of a game is what pieces come with the game. A table of contents is set up kind of like a table. We can see it's set up like a table. It has the same information in the same places. It says table of contents. It's set up like a table to tell us what are the contents of this book. So the definition, table of contents, is a list of chapter titles with the number of the first page. So the table of contents, again, is a list of chapter titles with the number of the first page. It is found in the front of the book. So if your book has a table of contents, it's going to be one of the first pages. Not the very first page, maybe not even the second page, but it should be like third, fourth, fifth page of the book. It'll be one of the very first pages. We can see a table of contents right here. This is a table of contents for a reference book that is all about China. So this is a book that you would find in a library or a bookstore and say, it's going to have a title like Focus on China. And we see chapter 1 is called China at a Glance. It starts on page 5. We see chapter 2 is called History of Chinese Dynasties. It starts on page 25. Chapter 3 is Understanding Chinese Culture. It starts on page 45. Chapter 4 is about China's trade and economy. It starts on page 80. And then we have the last chapter, chapter 5, called The Future of China, which starts on page 100. Look at this table of contents. Which chapter would you go to? Like, say you're writing a paragraph about jobs in China. You don't want to read this whole over 100-page book to find that information. A table of contents is good for if you want to find, so that you can find where you can look for just the information you need. When you're writing something, usually you have a specific topic, and you don't want to have to read an entire reference book just to find one or two pieces of good information. So if you were writing an essay on the types of jobs people in China have, which of these chapters would you want to go to? Because you don't want to read every single page of every single chapter just to find information on one topic. What chapter would you go to find information on jobs that people in China have? Victoria.
I would probably go to chapter 3, and it says,
There's an even better one than chapter 3. Chapter 3 is about their culture. Jobs are not necessarily part of a culture. Now, there may be some jobs that are particular to a certain culture, but what if I wanted to just find out what kind of jobs are available to anyone in China? Zadie.
I would try chapter 4.
Chapter 4, China's trade and economy. Because what is an economy? We learned this in social studies. Economy means what? We learned this in social studies. Some people are tuning out, waiting for other people to answer. Victoria?
A large group of people.
Nope. Zari?
All the production, selling, and buying people do. All the ways people use resources to meet their needs.
So, specifically make money. This was a social studies word. You're supposed to know these words. Just because we finish with it does not mean you get to forget about it forever. I'm not just teaching you stuff just to have you take a test and then never use it again. There's a reason you're learning this, because you'll need to know it. The economy, the summary of what Zari said, how people meet their needs, how they make money. Well, do you do a job just because it's fun? When you're an adult, do you go get a job just because you want to have fun? Aaron? No, you don't. Why do you get a job, Aaron?
You get a job so you can make money.
You get a job so you can make money. Do I get a job to make money just to go do fun things or buy TVs or buy clothes? What do I need to do with that money? What is the most important thing I need to do with that money? Zari.
Pay your bills.
Pay my bills. So, if I was writing a paragraph about jobs people have in China, I'd want to go to the chapter about the economy, because that's how people use resources to make their money. That's how they use resources to have a job. So I don't have to read pages 5 through 79 or pages 100 and after. I just need to look through page 80 to 99, which is 19 pages, but 19 pages is a lot easier to look through than over 100. So I would start on page 80, and I would start reading or skimming until I found something that would give me what I needed, that would tell me what I needed to know. So that's why you use a table of contents, especially as you get older and start doing research. You're not going to want to read 6 books cover to cover just to find 10 facts. You're going to want to pick out 6 books that may help you and read like 1 chapter in each one to find information. So that's what you use a table of contents for. That'll tell you where the information you need is, so you don't have to read the whole book trying to find it. Next. Oh, let's find that in our book, in our textbook. Because your textbook does have a table of contents. Remember, it's one of the first pages. So see if you can find it. If you find it, raise your hand and tell us what page it's on. Victoria, I did see your hand first. What page does it start on?
It says on
Page 4. Put that in your bin, please. Page 4. We see each chapter. We see the stories that are in each chapter, and we see the pages where it starts on. So, looking at page 4 and 5, if I wanted to read a story about a boy who finds a raft, which page am I going to turn to? I want to find a story about a boy who finds a raft. Carla, what page am I going to turn to?
112.
112. Let's go there and see if that's right. Was that right? Did we find a story about a boy who finds a raft?
Yes.
Yep. Do I have to read through all the pages 1 through 111 to find it? Do I have to just search through the book until I find it and potentially miss it? No. The table of contents tells me exactly where to go for each unit. Now, Cullen, I don't know if your book has a table of contents.
It doesn't.
It doesn't? Probably not. Okay, Kingston, let me see your book. I know yours does. No, your book that you're reading.
Miss Potts, mine does too.
Okay, so books that you read on your own usually also, not always, but chapter books a lot of times also have a table of contents. I'm going to turn a few pages in. Oh, I see another title page. And there's the table of contents. So if I lose my place while I'm reading, but I know I'm on the chapter called The Dementor, I don't remember what number it is, but I remember it was called The Dementor, I can find the chapter called The Dementor. Chapter 5, it starts on page 69. And then I can go to 69. And I know I was in that chapter. I don't remember what page I was on. But then I only have to look through. Of course, I picked a long one, but oh well. I know all I have to look through is this much to find my page instead of this much to find my page. So, that's another good use of the table of contents. If you forget where you are, you lose your place. Look at the table of contents, find the chapter you were on, and then you only have to search that chapter instead of the whole book. I'm going to hold on to this too, just in case. So I have two different options. Okay. Now, you don't erase, obviously. There are two more things. One of these things we've talked about pretty extensively, and you guys already know how to use it, so we're not going to really go too much into it.
Dictionary.
But the glossary. The glossary. Glossary. The glossary gives meaning to the important words in a book. We already know that. We've used that a few times. Is there somebody there? Okay, don't worry about it. We've used the glossary a few times in science and social studies. Oops, I forgot. Where do we find it? Who can tell me where do we find a glossary? Aaron. In the back of a book. So, it is found in the back of a book. Not necessarily the last page, but it's toward the back. Now, usually the books we read for fun, like stories and novels, they will almost never have a glossary. I have read a couple novels where the author did put a glossary in the back, and that was just respect the author's choice. That doesn't happen much, and it mostly only happens in books you read when you're learning to read. I'm trying to think. Like, there was a book I really loved when I was younger, when I was a kid, that had a glossary in the back, and I loved the glossary. I don't remember what it was. But we know textbooks all have glossaries in the back. Our math book has a glossary in the back. Our reading textbook has a glossary in the back. Our science book has a glossary in the back. Our social studies book has a glossary in the back. The religion book may have a glossary in the back. I'm not really sure. I know our old religion book did. I'm not sure about this one. If we go to the back, we know it's in the back. Does that mean the very last page? No, it does not. We just go to the back. We find it. It will be labeled glossary. In this case, this actually tells you a lot of information about how to read a glossary. So if you want to go more in depth about how to read a glossary, go to the page right before the A's. But most textbooks, like other than reading textbooks, will just say like glossary, and then they'll start. All the words are listed how? In what order? Michaela? Alphabetical order. So if you're trying to find a word, do you have to read every single word in this glossary to find it? No. Do you even have to read every single word in the A's to find it? No. You can use your alphabetical order skills, which you guys should be working on, and we will keep working on them in spelling. Use an alphabet to help you. Sorry, I have an alphabet over here, girls, but you guys can write an alphabet. Use it to help you, and then you can find the word easily, and then find the definition. So, that is a glossary. That's all we're going to go into because we've used one before, so we don't need to talk too much about it. But if you do want more information, go to the page right before the A's in your reading textbook, not right now, and it'll tell you all kinds of information on how to use a glossary. What we are really going to focus on is something that I have mentioned before, but we haven't had to use it, is the index. The index. An index lists subjects covered in a reference book. I don't think you may find a glossary in a novel, but I don't think you will ever find an index in a novel. I've never seen it. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Bless you. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I just don't know where I could tell you to look. Like, it might not. I don't know. Because when you're reading a book for fun, you don't necessarily need an index to find where something is. But in a reference book, it lists the subjects covered, like names, places, events, and topics, like we'll say, these are examples of topics: farming or agriculture, which are kind of the same thing. They go together. Farming is a type of agriculture. So an index lists the subjects covered in a reference book. Names of people, places, events, and topics. In alphabetical order, so just like a glossary, the index is also listed in alphabetical order, because if you're trying to find where farming is mentioned in a book, you need to go to the index and it needs to be in alphabetical order. How else are you going to be able to find farming in that index? You'd have to read every single one. But it's in alphabetical order with page numbers. And the reason for that is because, again, say you're writing that paragraph about how people in China, about the jobs people in China have, and you have a reference book that's all about China, and you see that China's trade and economy starts on page 80, but that's still 19 pages. You have 2 days to write this paragraph. Do you necessarily have time to read 19 pages when you also have several other books and websites to also find information in? No. So that means you can go to the index of this book, find the J's in the index, and find the word jobs, and then it'll tell you, okay, jobs, the word jobs is mentioned on pages 92, 96, and 98. So then do you have to read every single page, or can you go to page 92, 96, or 98? Which one would be easier? Which one saves you time so that you have enough time to get as much detail as possible? Zari.
When you can just look it up in the index.
Good. So here I have on your paper, I have an example of an index. This is the M section of the index, and these are some of the people, places, events, and topics covered. So look at this index. Say I wanted to find out about a person, a specific person who was from Mongolia. And I know that this person from Mongolia would probably be in China at a glance, because that's going to tell us all about the places in and around China. But I want to find out specifically about this one group of people from Mongolia. Would I have to read all 20 pages to find it? No. Where could I go? Look at this index. Where could I go to find out the information on the people from Mongolia? Mason.
Pages 10/12.
10 through 12. If you see a dash like that, that means they're mentioned on pages 10, 11, and 12. So there's probably like a whole little section about Mongols, which are people from Mongolia. If we have a dash, that means all of those pages mention Mongols. Here we have a comma. That means they're mentioned, money is mentioned on page 40 and page 89, not pages 40 through 89. Here, for merchants, we have a comma and a dash. That means merchants are mentioned on page 74, and there's probably going to be a little section about merchants on pages 80 through 83. So does everybody understand, when you see an index, the difference between the comma and the dash? The dash means all of those pages between those two numbers and including those two numbers have information about this topic or this person or this event or this place. But a comma after it means it's just mentioned on that one page. Okay? So that is why an index and a glossary are important, because again, sometimes we don't need every single bit of information in a reference book. I know when I was in college, I had to write a research paper every year. When I was in high school too. Let's go with high school because that's a little closer. Actually, I started in 7th grade. In 7th grade, that was the first year I had to write a full research paper. 5-page research paper. It was like 5 to 7 pages in the 7th grade. And the internet was around, but I didn't have internet at my house. Because my dad was like, no internet, we're not joining the 20th century. Even though it was the 20th century. No, 21st, sorry, the 21st. We did not have internet at my house. I went to a small Catholic school, St. Anne on Highland, RIP. Our library was not very big, so I had to go to the big main library, and I had to get books and borrow them from the library. I borrowed, and this was with every paper I ever did, I borrowed like 5 or 6 books each time, because you can't get all your information from one book. You just can't. It's not usually all going to be there. So I borrowed 5 or 6 books. As a 7th grader, do I have the time or the energy to read 5 or 6 200-page books? No, I don't. As an adult, I don't have that kind of time or energy. Also, a lot of that stuff is not going to be important to what I had to write my paper about. If I'm writing a paper about Chinese like one Chinese dynasty, one family of rulers, do I really need to read any of these others, like China at a glance? Maybe Chinese culture might be helpful, but would the future of China be would it be important for me to read about the future of China if I'm writing about a Chinese dynasty that ruled in like the year 800 AD? No. So that's why these table of contents are so important, because that tells me, okay, which chapter am I going to find my information? Then I can narrow it down even more and find, okay, which pages am I going to find my information on? That way I don't have to read 6 200-page books. I can read like 3 or 4 pages from each of those 6 books. 3 or 4 pages from 6 books, say I read 4 pages from each of those 6 books. That's 24 pages. That's a lot better than if I read every page of each of those 6 books at 200 pages each. That is 1,200 pages. So do you see why it's so important to know about this? 24 pages of reading over a few weeks versus 1,200 pages over a few weeks. Which one would you rather do? 24. Even if a topic is the most interesting thing in the world to you, you're still not going to want to read 1,200 pages in like 2 weeks. And this will be important when we get to our president projects, because some of you may be using reference books. Okay, so that is the most important part of this lesson today. How do we use a table of contents? How do we use an index? Let's find the index in our treasures book. Where is it going to be? In the way back. It's even behind the glossary. The index is usually, not always, but usually the last part of the book. This may not have an index.
It doesn't.
Well, let's look before, just in case they decided to be a little different. No, this does not have an index. So I know that your social studies book has an index. So get out. Oh, you don't have your social studies book.
Yeah.
Maybe your science book. Try your science book. Find the index in the back. Let me add this note. It is found
Kylie, you need to.
in the back of the book. Okay, copy this note while I go get a social studies book. It is R49 in your science book. If you don't, girls at home, if you don't have your science book, don't worry about it. I'll show you. R49, it says index, and it has all of the topics, people, whatever, listed. So, say I wanted to find information on carrots.
Oh.
I would go to the index, which is the back of the book. There's only the acknowledgement or the credits. That's who took the pictures, who wrote certain things, who drew pictures. So I'm going to go to my index, and I'm going to go to the C's, and then I'm going to find carrots. I know carrots, CA, means it's going to be towards the beginning of this list. And CAR means it's going to be towards the end of the very beginning of this list. So I find carrots. Where can I find information about carrots, Ethan? Look, the index tells us exactly where to turn. What pages can I go to find information about carrots? 49 and 54. Let's go to page 49. Sorry, Colin. I'm gonna go to page. Let's go to page 49 if you have your science book. We have a carrot. Now I know that a carrot has a taproot. And if I go to page 54, I see a carrot. I know that carrots, if I look at this picture, I see that a carrot is a plant I can eat. And there you go.
I'm on page 50.
So now I don't have to look through all
Of those pages.
590 pages of this science textbook to find those two little pieces of information about carrots.
Do we read all those pages?
No, we don't have time. So, that is why it is so important to know how to use an index and these parts of a book. Now, what I want to talk about really quick, I just want to add, we only have like 5 minutes, so I guess your independent practice for this will be your homework. I guess we just won't do, oh, you know what? I don't know. Maybe this will be morning work for tomorrow, maybe not. I don't know, I'll decide tomorrow. Was that necessary? Did that help it feel better? But did it help it feel better? No. Did it help us stay on topic so we can finish this last little bit to help your independent practice, which is now homework? Sorry. Okay. I'm sorry your finger hurts, but we don't need all the dramatics. We are not in drama club. We are in
Miss Paulus,
reading. Yes, Carla, quickly. We only have like 3 minutes and I need to tell you 2 more things.
my question is it okay if the girls at home, when the kids at school have morning work, can the kids at home have morning work too?
We'll see, but that's not really important right now, okay? Does that help us to get finished with reading and language arts? No. Okay, so the last 2 things we're going to say is we're going to talk about headings and subheadings. Cullen, leave your science book out. Sorry, you're right there, so you're going to be, you are Kingston, or who I'm going to get everything. Just put it to the side. Headings and subheadings. We have seen these all year, especially in science and social studies. I will show you an example in just a minute. You do not need it. I'll just show it to you. If you already have it there nearby, you can look at it, but you don't need it. Headings and subheadings tell what each section of information is about. Headings and subheadings tell what each section of information is about. We've seen these all year long, and I will show you exactly what we're talking about in just a second. Zari, please turn your camera on. These are found inside the text. So, the title page and the table of contents are found at the front of the book. The glossary and the index are found at the end of the book. And the headings and subheadings are found inside the book. Now you see the same base word, headings. Headings are like the titles of each section. Subheadings have that prefix sub. The prefix sub means that something is underneath something else. So a subheading is a smaller heading underneath a big heading. I will show you what I mean in just a second. Everybody get a chance to finish writing that. These are found throughout the text. They are not in your reading textbook because your reading textbook is set up differently than a science book. Just ignore it right now, please. Focus on this instead of that. You can fix that in a minute. So in our science book, also in our social studies book, we've been seeing headings and subheadings constantly. Remember, headings and subheadings tell us what each section of text or information is about. So let's go to what we did yesterday. Oh, this is it. If you are doing that, please stop. Zari, I need to see your face. Here's lesson 2. The beginning of lesson 2. Please focus. It is on page 324. Please do it quickly because I want you to see this, and if you're spending time finding the book, if you don't have your science book out, don't worry about it. I'm showing you. But if you would like to look closely, please quickly open to page 324. If you do not do this quickly, then I'm going to tell you close the book and just look up here. Here's the beginning of chapter 7, lesson 2. Remember, a heading is the blue questions are the headings. That tells you until you get to a new blue question, everything in this section of information is about why does water change state. So that means until you get to a new blue question, a new heading, it's all about why water changes state. But there are different reasons, or there are different ways that water changes state. So then we have our subheadings. These little black titles. They are subheadings because they still have to do with this blue question. These little black titles are subtitles because they still tell us why does water change state. But now we know everything from this black title, evaporation, until we get to the next black title, condensation, is all about evaporation. That is how water changes state. Because remember, when evaporation happens, it changes state. It changes from liquid to gas. But then we get to condensation. That's a new way that water changes state. But we know it's still a way that water changes state because it changes from a gas back into a liquid. And then we have precipitation, which is just another way water changes state. It changes from that still. Sorry, please stop doing that. You've been doing that all afternoon. Into that falling water. So does everybody see headings and subheadings? This will probably really help you with science now. Because you already know how to find information in the headings. Well, if you get to a question that's about evaporation, are you going to look under this subheading about condensation or this subheading about precipitation? Probably not. You can go to this section of information that has the subheading evaporation. So make sure you're thinking about that. Use the headings and subheadings to find exactly the information that you're looking for. Okay. How does everybody feel about using parts of a book? Good, because you have homework in it. I'm going to pass it out right now. It's the independent practice that I sent you girls. It was supposed to be independent practice, but we didn't have time. Don't put it away just yet. The using parts of a book can go in your reading side of your reading and religion. You can go ahead and put your science book away if you have it out. Do not put your homework, your independent practice / homework away. Let's look at it together. Okay.
I'm going to need you to show it to the board.
Okay, so the directions say the top, remember, don't ignore these top boxes. The top box, not the directions, says looking at the different parts of a book can help you figure out if the book will have the information you need. Because if you borrow 6 books from the library for your paper and you try to read a whole book and it ends up with nothing that you needed and you read 200 pages, how are you going to feel? Mason? Bored, annoyed. You're not going to want to read the other 5 books that have 200 pages because who knows if they have the information you need. That's why you use the parts of a book. Not only to make it easier on yourself, but also to make sure that you're not looking at something that will not help you at all. So it says, and then it has lists of parts of a book. We talked about all of these except for the front cover and the back cover. But what is the front cover? Show me the front cover of your reading textbook. Everybody, show me the front cover of your textbook. What does the front cover of your textbook tell you? Michaela, what the title of the book? What else does it tell you? Aaron?
It tells you the author and the illustrator.
The author and illustrator, if there is one. What else does it tell you? Carla?
Who published it?
The publisher. Very good. It can also give you a picture, not necessarily a textbook, but a book you're reading for fun will usually give you a picture of something that may happen in the book. So it helps you to know, do I want to read this? Now, everybody show me the back cover of your textbook. Now, the back cover of a book usually tells you the title, the publisher. Sometimes it has the author. But the back cover of a book you'll read for fun will have a what on the back? What is this called? You write one every night, every time you do your reading log. What is this called? Smith.
A summary of the book.
A summary. So if you're not sure by looking at the front if you want to read it, where can you look to find more information about what's in the book? Zadie. The summary on the back cover of the book. Now, a textbook is usually not going to have a summary. Sometimes it may. Okay, so go ahead. Put your reading textbook. Put your reading homework in your return to school. This using parts of a book guided practice can go in the reading section of your reading and religion. You don't need it to do your homework.
Can me and Kingston have our books back?
In a minute.